Here's your script, ready to record or drop into your editor. 12 years. 12 years of showing up early, staying late, and never once complaining. And in one 5-minute meeting, it was all erased. James Carter, a single father raising his daughter alone, was told he no longer fit in at the company he helped build from the ground up. But what the CEO who fired him didn't know was that this wasn't the end of James's story. It was the beginning of something that would shake the entire company to its core. Before we dive in, if you believe in the power of kindness, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. This channel, Spread Kindness, is all about stories that remind us how one small act of compassion can change everything. Now, let's get into today's story. James Carter was 38 years old, and for 12 years, he had worked at a mid-sized logistics company in Ohio. He started in the warehouse, sweeping floors and loading trucks, and slowly worked his way up to shift supervisor. He was the guy everyone trusted. When a new employee needed help, James was the first to offer it. When someone's car broke down in the parking lot, James was the one standing outside in the cold, helping them jump the battery. He wasn't just an employee. He was the heartbeat of that branch. 3 years earlier, James had become a single father. His wife had passed away suddenly, leaving him to raise their 6-year-old daughter, Maya, on his own. It wasn't easy. There were mornings he showed up to work exhausted after staying up all night with a sick child. There were days he had to leave early for school events. But he never let it affect his work ethic. He simply adjusted, sacrificed sleep, sacrificed rest, and kept showing up, because that branch, and the people in it, felt like family to him. Then a new CEO took over the company. He was young, sharp, and obsessed with what he called culture fit. He wanted a workplace that looked a certain way, moved a certain way, and fit a very narrow idea of what success should look like. James, with his quiet steadiness and his focus on his daughter over corporate happy hours, didn't fit that mold. One Tuesday morning, without warning, James was called into a small office and told his position was being restructured. When he asked why, after 12 years of loyalty, the CEO simply said, "You just don't fit in here anymore." James walked out of that building in silence. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply picked up the small box of his belongings, said goodbye to a few coworkers who had tears in their eyes, and drove home to pick up Maya from school. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at unpaid bills, wondering how he was going to explain this to his daughter. What the CEO didn't know was that James wasn't just any employee. Years earlier, before the branch struggled financially, James had personally co-signed a private loan to help keep the local branch open during a rough patch, back when the previous owner, a man named Walter Higgins, was still running things. Walter had since retired, but he had never forgotten what James did for him and for the dozens of families who depended on that branch for their paychecks. Walter still held a small but significant stake in the company, quietly, through a holding group most people didn't even know existed. When Walter heard what had happened to James, he didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply made one phone call to the new CEO. He said 4 words, "Close the branch," then. Confused, the CEO asked what he meant. Walter explained calmly that the branch had only survived because of the sacrifices James made, sacrifices no one in the new leadership had ever bothered to learn about. He explained that loyalty like James's wasn't something you could put in a spreadsheet, and that firing him wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal of everything that branch stood for. Walter told the CEO he had 2 options: reinstate James with a formal apology and a promotion, or Walter would pull his investment and the branch would shut down within the month, leaving over 100 employees without jobs. The CEO, humbled and shaken, called James the very next morning. He apologized, not just with words, but by offering him a new position as regional operations manager, with a raise that would finally give James and Maya some breathing room. But more than the job, what moved James most was the letter Walter sent him personally. It read simply, "You gave this company its heart when no one was watching. I'm just making sure it doesn't lose it again." James returned to work 3 days later, not out of pride, but because he knew how many families depended on that branch staying open. He walked back through those doors and was met with applause from coworkers who had missed him, who valued him, who saw him. Maya, when she found out her dad got his job back and a promotion, hugged him so tight he could barely breathe, and told him, "I always knew you were the best dad ever." This story is a reminder that kindness is never wasted. Somewhere, someone is always watching the quiet sacrifices we make, and one day, that kindness comes back around in ways we never expect. James never asked for recognition. He never asked for a reward. He simply showed up, every single day, with a good heart. And in the end, that good heart was what saved him. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Like this video, subscribe to spread kindness, and leave a comment telling us what kindness means to you. Because in a world that can feel cold sometimes, we all have the power to make it a little warmer. See you in the next story.